There we go. So I know that there's kind of delay with the StreamYard, so we'll kind of take care of that in process. But for now, we are live, and oh boy, tonight's going to be fun. Tonight is going to be fun. I wanted to talk about Battlestar tonight because, well, I did another Battlestar article today, and it was because there's a pretty nice interview with the guy that is the new showrunner, courtesy of the Hollywood Reporter, which I used for my article. So shout out to the Hollywood Reporter for that interview. But yeah, I found some nice, interesting, juicy tidbits in that interview. And if you read my article on bounding into comics, I will link it in the chat. I also have it up, screen sharing it with you guys. So I will go through with you with that as well. So just let me continue here because it's like kind of a big clusterfuck at the moment. It's like kind of doing like 10 things on the fly here, so bear with me. Make sure that I link this up in the chat. SD, what is up? By the way, Script Doctor, if you would like to join into this this chat, and also congrats, SD. I made you a moderator, considering I don't have any moderators. And so you are my very first moderator, sir. So there you go. And I will go ahead and add a second moderator because Rosetta Allen is in the house, and she is a very esteemed member of the Fandom Menace. Has a very good YouTube channel as well. Make sure that you check out her profile, follow her YouTube channel, because she does streams on there and has a good time, and she's really awesome. But yeah, now I have 2 moderators. I'm really happy. But the thing is we have some really interesting news with this article. And like I said, if anybody would like to join in the panel, I'm going to go ahead and send out invites. Would either of you like to join in the discussion? Because as I said, as we go through the article, there is some interesting info coming out. And I think a lot of the people that are against a reboot, yeah, it might change your mind, but we'll see. So let me go ahead and I will bring up. Let me load up my Twitter here. I have a tablet and I have my my PC that I'm sitting at right now. So I'm actually gonna have to log into Twitter on my PC here for a second, and then I will DM you guys a StreamYard link. So just bear with me for 1 second here. Boy, it's hell when you're trying to multitask. I have mad respect for those people out there that can multitask on the fly like champs, because you know, I'm kind of not one of them. Massages, okay. All right. I just DM'd Rosetta Allen one, and let me find you in the list here. SD. Here we go. And you are being DM'd one right now, too. There you go. You guys are there. All right, so I sent those out via Twitter, so you guys should have links to the stream. Go back in the studio here. Wait for everybody to get their stuff up and running. I think Rosetta's in. Okay, Rosetta, you all up and running? I think I can hear you. Okay.
Got a little mauled here, so I'm kind of doing this with one arm right now.
No, that's fine. It's all good. Script Doctor, you got everything good to roll on your end with your mic and stuff?
Come on, old girl, move a little.
We'll get Script Doctor in there. There he is.
Okay. Hello.
All right. Hello, sir. You are in. We are all in. There we go.
All right. That's awesome. I'm got a little bit tricky with my speaker, so but I can hear you.
Yeah, as long as you can hear, you're good to go.
I'm good as long as I can move my arms enough to actually respond to things.
Yeah, so as long as everybody generally, as long as you guys can see the YouTube chat and kind of keep an occasional eyeball on it, and we're good in case I miss any comments or anybody else does. We can.
So you say you're oblivious? I mean,
well, I'm not oblivious, but
I'm sorry.
It happens.
You know that.
It happens. Oh yeah, that's fine. It's all good.
But she's a little clingy because I was gone so long. She hasn't hardly let go of me in the last few days. So.
All right, so this is interesting. I've been following this. I've done my last. Thanks, Mel. I appreciate that. It's my good friend Melanie Ham. She is also.
How much she pay?
She's a very close personal friend in real life, and
no needing.
A fellow game streamer, and she and I have been down the road. She's been my friend now 14 years. So yeah, she and I are thick as thieves, and there's not a minute that goes along that when she's around me that she's not busting my balls. So
I just have to say, as a woman, one of our favorite pastimes is busting the balls of our male friends.
Exactly, and
that's
we wouldn't.
How we are.
And as guys, I could say we wouldn't have it any other way. But
yeah, it makes us stronger.
Exactly. There you go.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or cripples you emotionally. Either way.
But here lately, the articles that I've been doing for Bounding, I mean, I got onto this Battlestar Galactica story because NBC and Universal are obviously launching a streaming service in 2020. It's going to be called Peacock, and I still laugh about that name because it just sounds so goofy.
Yeah, especially considering what Peacock meant in some old circles, but I won't go there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who's exactly going to, with a straight face, tell their friends, man, I'm going to sit in tonight and watch some Peacock.
Hey, Jasmine, get down. You're making me look like some sort of villain.
But I don't think anybody's going to rush to say, I'm going to sit back and watch Peacock tonight.
Get down.
But go on. But the thing with this is one of the flagship shows that they're talking about having on the streaming service is bringing back Battlestar Galactica in some form or fashion. And they got the guy that did the Mr. Robot show, and I know that's been a pretty well received show. It's gotten good ratings. A lot of people have kind of established it as, I guess, I don't know. What would you say, Script Doctor? Would you say it's like kind of a sleeper hit, sort of?
Well, I remember when it was first being filmed, and there was a lot of hype around it. I think it was there was a documentary, like a really short-term documentary with Jamie Bamber, who was doing like a set tour right before the actual miniseries aired. And when I was living in Toronto at the time, it was like all the rage against all the sci-fi guys. Like even the Chum Building, like City TV, a lot of the local networks were just going on about how great this show could be.
Oh,
And
I was talking more
yeah,
about Mr. Robot, the show that the guy worked on before.
oh well, yeah, Mr. Robot's like crazy. I mean, it's dark. It's got a cool interpretation to it. The narrative is familiar, but it still goes into new areas. I really have enjoyed the show so far, but it's been mostly like kind of like that thing where I don't have to watch it, but whenever I try to put it on the background, I end up getting distracted by the show. Like it's pretty engrossing, and I think that if he's tackling Battlestar Galactica, I'm pretty curious as to what type of approach he's going to make.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to get into because it seems like whenever that I've met somebody that watches Mr. Robot, because I haven't been very familiar, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. I'm not super familiar with Mr. Robot. I don't watch it. So
I'm with you. I actually don't know what it is, and that's just
yeah,
because I don't have a lot of time to be searching all these different networks and stream services for things anymore.
well, this was on I believe USA Network
Yeah,
because
and I kind of cut back most of my main TV stuff a few years ago because I got fed up with the cost.
with cable, yeah, I got it, but yeah, Mr. Robot has always felt to me like kind of a sleeper hit. So I think Script Doctor, you would agree with me on that assessment. It's probably like would be considered. There's somebody asked how popular was Mr. Robot. Looking back on it, I think a lot of people would say it was probably like a sleeper hit. So it was successful.
Oh yeah, it was successful. I mean, it wasn't like huge mainstream with regards to like other shows. I mean, like This Is Us kind of dominated everything around the same time. But like Mr. Robot's going to be a show that people are going to kind of go back to a couple of years from now. Like if it got on like the full Netflix thing, it'd be kind of parallel to The Office. Like all those like millennials and the younger generations are just totally going to be enthralled by it.
Okay, all right. So knowing what we know about the gentleman's background, his name is Sam Esmail. For those of you out there watching that aren't familiar, um, this time around with the Battlestar stuff, I was looking at this interview he did with the Hollywood Reporter, and and so the interviewer asked him why exactly he decided to take on Battlestar. And his answer to that was, well, it was a sci-fi show that didn't feel incredibly sci-fi. It was grounded. And he goes on to say, I felt like I was watching a war film. It's pretty allegorical because it was talking about 9/11 and the post-terrorist attack environment in a very human way. It was groundbreaking television in how serialized it was before that was popular with other dramatic shows. Okay, so later on, the interviewer follows up and asks, okay, is it daunting to reboot the franchise? And this is where we get into the interesting part and the breaking news part of this broadcast, you guys. This is what I really wanted to get to because this answer right here is very telling. Now, he says, I quote, the word reboot was used when we were first talking about it, and I cringed. I hate the word cringe, by the way. Not to get off topic, but it's just such a SJW word. But anyway,
It's kind of become that. It wasn't originally, but SJWs have this tendency to totally F up anything they touch.
exactly.
Make you want to go smack. And have you ever had a Wookiee on your head?
No, it seems like it though.
Sorry, this is me just acting crazy for fun.
No, that's fine. But he continues. Ronald Moore just hit it out of the park with his series. So why would I even want to touch that? I talked to him and said, A, are you okay with this? And B, if you are, how do we proceed? Apparently, Ron Moore told him he was okay with it as long as it wasn't a reboot, which was in line with what I was thinking. But the world of Battlestar Galactica is so rich, the mythology so interesting, that I think there's a lot to pick from and explore. Now
So
that
sequel based instead of rebooting.
Right,
Not
exactly.
follow-up.
Well, I don't know that it's a follow-up though, because here's the thing. He's keeping it set in, because by getting Ron Moore's approval and permission, he's allowed to keep it set in that timeline and lore and continuity of the Ron Moore universe. Okay. But now you've got two ways you can go. And this goes along with my article I previously wrote, which, by the way, thank you for readers out there. Those of you that read my reboot theory on how a reboot could work. Good job. It's over 11,000 reads, and I appreciate you. So thank you for going to boundingintocomics.com and checking it out. You guys are awesome for the support. But back to that, I think this is so cool because he can pull out of any portion of the universe. Now, the way the 2004 series ended, and I'm sure Script Doctor, like me, you probably watched the entire thing, so you understand the ending of 2004. And I don't think you can sequelize off of something that does a, spoiler alert, time jump 150,000 years into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I enjoyed the ending, but I also like that whole Lee Adama speech at the end, which is like, let's just scrap our technology and see what happens and go that way. I was like, you kind of defeat the purpose of your whole journey and being able to record the lessons that you've learned. And I was like, oh, you're just going to start a cyclical story here where eventually humanity will do the same thing with their own type of AI, Cylon allegory, all that stuff. And I was like, that's fun and interesting, and it kind of makes Galactica a prequel to our own reality. And I'm like, that's kind of a cool idea. But then at the other part of me is like thinking, yeah, that's kind of makes the struggle not really worth all the cool stories that we saw. It's just like, let's just kind of forget about it at the end, the type of thing. And I was like, But again, like that show was just so good, did some great stuff.
I don't see how you could really go the sequel direction. And in my theory article, I pointed that out because, I mean, at that point, you're talking about basically Battlestar Earth, and nobody's even going to know that there was a ship named Galactica, and unless the Earth that 150,000 years, unless the Earth society evolved where it just stayed like 12, 13 colonies, I don't see how that would work. So you won't have that whole aspect.
Yeah.
So the thing is I'm thinking that it's almost pointing to one direction, and Script Doctor, you know where I'm going with this. It almost has to be the first Cylon War. You almost have to do the first Cylon War.
Yeah, I could see it being kind of like an adjacent prequel. I guess that would be incorporating Lee Adama's Husker days, maybe?
Well, yeah, you'd have William Adama.
Oh, yeah, William Adama, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have Bill in his younger years as a young pilot. You would have whoever was in charge of the Galactica at that time. There's, I guess, in the lore, a couple different people that were in charge, in command of Galactica at that time briefly. So, take your pick. If they go according to the bigger knowledge base and the bigger lore, and according to the Battlestar Galactica Deadlock video game, then, it'll be like one of two different officers. but I feel like, here's the advantage to doing the first Cylon War. You can take and show the battles that built the Galactica's legend as a hero ship. I mean, you're talking about a ship that's friggin' legendary, man. To them, it's like like we have, I guess, our day, the USS Missouri, as a historic monument. We have the Arizona Memorial. I mean, it's a ship like that iconic in our, if you think about it from the standpoint of our personal world history. It's the same thing with the Galactica. To them, that's like a hero ship in their global history. So, you would actually, during that time period, see how the Galactica's legend was built.
Yeah.
I can see that as one possibility. The other part, which was interesting, is how he talked about exploring the lore of the show and all the areas of the universe that they haven't really addressed yet. And that gives me an idea of like maybe he's going to go with a parallel story, like something else that's happening along the same side as when Galactica is making its journey to Earth, like maybe a rogue group of ships that just got lost among the actual escapes, and they went a completely different direction, and they had their own survival struggles, kind of like the Pegasus, but completely without a Battlestar to defend them.
Well, yeah, you could have that, but see, at that point, you're getting away from from the premise of the show, because like it or not, Galactic is in the name, and if you don't have the Galactica ever come into play, that's. See,
oh no, I agree
that.
with that.
Yeah.
Like it's just where do you go when you don't want it to be a reboot and you're kind of being vague if it's really a prequel or a sequel? You're looking at like a parallel type of show. Kind of like, I guess, what is it CBS or who does the Hawaii Five-O's and the MacGyvers and the
That's CBS.
Usually CBS.
CBS is doing that right now. Hawaii Five-O, MacGyver, and I guess Magnum PI. They're all in their same universe. All stories are happening at the same time, and they're interchangeable scripts. And it's like it's weird, but it's what's being done to try and sort of create the smaller franchise. And and with a better writer like this Mr. Robot guy is, whose name's escaping me now, I guess. You could definitely pull it off. I mean, if it wouldn't be a Galactica in the ship, they could say it's just members of the Galactica crew, or maybe even one of the old commanders of Galactica who's just too old to really do anything, but other than be wise and leading these ragtag group of survivors on their own. But yeah, like that's just a theory. I would have really no idea what he's going to do if he's not making it an actual reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's almost
they've kind of tied the hands quite a bit there.
Yeah, with the way the old show ended and everything else.
And you're saying old show, but the only one I really grew up on and watched a lot was the original. So
yeah, 78. Well, see, that's another.
And it was completely different then. It was based more on wacky sci-fi.
Yeah, well, that you know how that was back then, Rosetta, because I saw that when I was a kid too. I was 4 or 5 years old. I saw that on TV. And, I mean, it was at the time. That was just the TV answer to Star Wars. So it was just like campy pew pew lasers.
I kind of stuck in between Star Wars and Star Trek, trying to be a little more intellectual with elements of like Lost in Space style. It was kind of an in-between response to the growing sci-fi phenomenon at the time. But it didn't quite hit with most of the fans, unfortunately.
Well, that's what I said, because some of the camp was over the top. I mean, so
most shows back then were, even Star Trek was, and I love original series to death, but it was very campy, even when it had good morals.
Well, yeah, but see, and this is what I'm saying with them going first Cylon War era is, you have so many positives in your corner right now if you go that route. So if I'm this guy, I'm definitely going that route. I have a video game that's running concurrent with my show that I can, get additional story and lore from and exchange back and forth with. And then I also have the ability to, like, for everybody to see Galactica in its prime. And I also have the ability to sprinkle in elements that can bring both sides of the fandom together, where I can do, some subtle nods.
Yeah.
I can do some subtle nods to the original.
Can't be original. That's what I'm thinking is, if you can do it right, if you can hit in that point where you can have the ship in it enough at least to use the name, even if it's not the main focus, and hit the elements of the drama that a lot of people loved and the original that a lot of people love without going too drama or too campy, it could be done and be golden. But it's like threading a needle here. It's going to be really difficult to do.
Well, see, I like what Script Doctor says, because based on this guy's work with Mr. Robot, I think that this guy could be really good with what he's going to do. And here, and to finish off the discussion of the article really quick here. So the last question they asked him, is an adjustment just producing a project rather than being involved in every aspect? Well, the guy was really honest about it. He said, hey, look, it's been a struggle. I have a hard time not being involved in every aspect of the equation. Sometimes if I'm on set, I'm literally moving things an inch here or an inch there.
In other words, he's admitting he's a bit of a control freak.
Yeah, which is refreshing because a lot of them don't.
Yeah, those of us who are, just admit you're an OCD control freak. It makes it easier to work with people. I'm speaking from experience there. It's just easier to say, hey, I'm a control freak. Just let me do it. Get out of my way.
So he said when it comes to working on other shows with other creators, it's all about trying to find a balance of collaboration and staying out of their way. So it sounds to me like, with the way that he's going to go about it, if he's just like the EP, like the showrunner, I think that the way that he's going to do it is go and sort of leave it in the hands of the individual episode directors and writers. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting because that's what made a lot of what the 2004 show shine, was the fact that Ron Moore oversaw everything, but he let the individual like writers and directors in each episode sort of make it their own. So you had really good episodic arcs and things like that for the certain episodes that were written by certain writers. So I mean, if he does this and follows that formula, I think that's going to be great.
Well, it is going to be the writers that control the show a lot more than the directors, traditionally with television, that is. Mm-hmm. But if he were to be smart and pull some writers that do have some directing experience and get some sort of new through line here, he could, if the quality's there, you'll have a really, really great show. And then this one idea that just popped into my head, which is that what if this show was a sequel, in the fact that it's say 150 years from now in humanity, and as they're exploring just the solar system, they discover that the Galactica didn't actually make it to the sun. It just got caught in its orbit, and it's just been floating around for 150,000 years. There's something that
a much longer version than what happened in Andromeda, but similar.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to like pull another sci-fi idea and repurpose it for themselves.
Oh, sci-fi writers are infamous plagiarizers. Let's just get that out of the way.
That's dude. I think that's just that's just in all Hollywood. To be honest, I mean,
not entirely.
Sci-fi has a knack for it, especially even.
You see it in horror. You see it in sci-fi. You see it in everything, man.
Well, you see it more often because it's more of a safe bet to repeat, as opposed to going full risk with completely different. Because that's what they say in Hollywood all the time. I want the same but different. And so you take a similar premise and you kind of give it a little twist here and there. Sometimes it's enough to distance it. Sometimes it's just a blatant copy that you can't not ignore. and you just kind of roll the dice.
I just feel like, it's gonna turn into almost like, if you do some kind of trope like that, it's gonna turn into just like, you try to sequel it out, it's just gonna turn into like Earth Defense Force, because it's not gonna feel like, it's not really gonna feel like BSG, man. And you won't have a colonial military again, because if it goes by the way that current Earth is, I mean, we're a bunch of countries, we're not colonies, so it doesn't work.
And you also risk losing the crux of the premise of the show, which was like it's about survival, the things and choices we have to make in order to
Right.
survive, and the compromises of our own integrity and morals that we try to live up to. That's basically by saying, like, we don't have a home. We're living off of a mobile ship that is not designed to sustain us. So we're going to be making some tough calls. That was the best part of Galactica, seeing how they're going to pull off the next resource find. Like, oh, we're running out of water. Well, we got to find some ice. Or, oh, we're running out of food. Well, we got to find some sort of vegetation, or else we're going to a soil and green method.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the other side of it too. You run into a casting problem, because you have to then bring in again, humanoid Cylons, and you can have new ones, but you've already established that there's a hybrid. So you have like a bunch of like half human, half Cylon people, and what about them? Because they're not exactly Cylon nor human. Because you've got the basis for that, because you had Hera, who was Athena and Helo's daughter. So and that's what I'm saying. It's hard to go in a sequel direction. There's too many things working against it. Whereas you can take human Cylon sort of out of the equation and just go first Cylon war, and it's humans against toasters. Yeah. Brian, how are you? It's good to have you in the house, my dude.
Hey, Brian.
Well, all I can say is that
telling people to get in here, by the way.
Well, all I can say is that Sam Esmail's done a great job of getting us to talk about it. Like, that's kind of what you want to have when you just announced you're going to do a show. You want the fan base, you want the people outside of it to probably have a little bit of an interest. And if anything, he's paying attention to whatever's going on in social media to see if his thoughts are going in the right direction. So if people are saying, well, I don't want it to be a sequel, and he's just like, well, I got to think of a new approach, because the whole idea is to sort of please the base but give them something new and fun. And social media has the benefit of being able to do that before you spend millions of dollars on a pilot.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I wanted to get the word out. I think if people would take time to understand that, I mean, the man said it in his own words in the interview. Yay, hugs, Moira. How you doing? The biggest thing is it's not a reboot. So a lot of people had a concern about that. Like, oh man, I don't want to see BSG again. It's just another reboot, just another rehash. The guy's saying right here, it's not a reboot. So that's what makes a difference to me, because it's like, okay, if it's not a reboot, I can actually give it somewhat of a chance.
Yeah, I actually do get what you mean there, because we get so tired of them rebooting the same storyline of the same character arcs over and over and over and over until you've seen like 50 iterations of the same story points.
Well, see, here's a big one though, that we do have to have a valid concern about, guys, because seeing as how obviously we know and support the people in the Fandom Menace, we're all to a degree involved in that line of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, my concern is that is it gonna, because it's 2019? Is it gonna be really woke? Is it gonna be
Yeah.
one of those shows that's gonna be like, you know, this is why the 2004 show worked, okay? Because when they were telling a story, they didn't talk down to the viewer. And Script Doctor, he watched the series, so he gets it too.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch that show, it presents social issues. It presents really biting social issues in some of the episodes. But even though at times you can see that it clearly
Has some bias.
had some
There always
bias,
will be some.
it never ever presented it in a way that spoke down to the viewer. It left it up to the viewer because it presented both sides of a particular issue.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the best way to do things is you take very basic moral stances. Because, again, go back to like Star Trek and even the old shows, they had very poignant moral standpoints. But when it came to the in-between and the how to handle communications, which group believes what and stuff, they left it more open to interpretation, open to who you would more agree with, more sympathize with, empathize with. And so there was a little more openness to different viewpoints and ideas.
Script Doctor, can I ask you something, dude? When you're watching Mr. Robot, did it seem to you like it was a particularly woke show?
Not quite, but it's kind of hard to say because like there's definitely echoes of it when you're dealing with like hacktivists and people trying to want to doing like, I guess, computer crime for the greater good or social engineering. So there's definitely it there. But again, like the whole concept of like wokeness, that's not something I'm ever looking for. And whenever I'm watching something, it doesn't register until they do something really, really obvious, which kind of pulls you right out of the show.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with sort of like politics, the best approach for a writer is you address it with the most conflict as possible within the context of the genre or the show. So when you're dealing with a political idea, you want to not make it dated, but you want to make sure that you have as many sides as possible because that gives you more conflict, that gives you more drama, that gives you more entertainment. When you just do it as one-sided, it then becomes preachy, it then becomes patronizing, and we've seen how that affects entertainment when it's just the one side.
Yeah, at that point it sucks, let's be honest.
So Mr. Robot basically isn't over woke. It doesn't I guess like talk down to its viewers, essentially.
It's not like trying to watch Supergirl.
No, but they're definitely influencing, I guess, shows like Supergirl and the CWs and anything that has hacking into it because Mr. Robot takes it a bit more of a serious approach. And then you get TV shows where like you have computer like wizards hacking on a keyboard, but the screen is just some sort of like screensaver thing on, so you can't see what they're typing. And you're like, well, what the heck is this?
Right.
But they're trying. It's clearly someone just saw this Mr. Robot and like, oh, I'm going to do that same thing here, and I'm going to throw in my own techno babble. And Mr. Robot doesn't really do that. It's a bit more relatable with hacking, although my entire background experience to what hacking was to what it is now is antiquated. Like in the old days, you didn't hack live. You sent in a virus which did something, and then you sent it instructions, and then like 20, 30 minutes later, they'd send you something back, and that's usually how it was. But now it's a whole new world. I have no idea what it is sometimes, but
yeah,
I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, my biggest thing is, with the outbreak of wokeness, man, I am just so concerned that I'm hoping that this guy sticks with his formula and experience that he's gained from Mr. Robot, and why there seems to be a viewership and a following for Mr. Robot, and doesn't go the over woke route that a lot of movies, television shows are going, and then they bleed out viewers and they bleed out revenue because they don't wind up making anything because people shut it right off or they walk out.
Go broke.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on who's signing the checks and what they want out of the show. I mean, I work with a lot of writers on some TV shows and movies, and many of them, some of them are kind of crazy with the whole wokeness, and some of them are very normal, but they're being told, like, hey, if you want to get this made and if you want to get money, it's got to have this little thing here. They don't use words like agenda or things of that nature. They just say, like, hey, why don't we make it this type of female character that does this? And when you frame it that way, you kind of can't really say, no, that's a bad idea. You'd be like, hey, that might be an interesting take. And then they just kind of build up on that. And they say, well, we can't have this character go this direction because that'll be considered taboo or antithetical to what we're trying to do with this new take on the character. And so you can either end up going in a completely crazy direction, like something of, I guess, Captain Marvel or the Birds of Prey thing, the way that's being alluded to, or you can end up having something really kind of cool, like Aliens. Like Ripley wasn't supposed to be a woman with Sigourney Weaver. That was just by chance. And they made it work.
The way to do the characters, bring in the women, bring in the minorities, bring in the people with different medical, mental kind of stuff to deal with, and do it in a way that's not dividing people by those factors, but just having an all-inclusive cast and showing different people's strengths and stuff. It's all about how they implement it.
See, it's funny. Back at the time when the 2004 show was on the was on the air, there was I remember because I ran at the time the third largest Battlestar Galactica fan site online. Nice little factoid there, but I did. There was sci-fi.com, which obviously sci-fi, it was a sci-fi network show at the time. Sci-fi.com was the main home and the main forum community for it. Then there was an independent site called Ragnar Anchorage that was a fan site. They were the second biggest community after sci-fi. And then there was us. We were called Galactica Actual for a while, and then I switched the name over to Pegasus Actual when the Pegasus debuted because I was a huge fan of the Pegasus. But no, at our peak, we had like close to 20,000 members, and that the show had a passionate following, and the biggest thing was, there was a debate going on in the general fandom at the time. There was a lot of people that, like you said, Rosetta, you watched TOS Galactica, and I saw TOS Galactica when I was a kid. There was a lot of TOS Galactica fans who were strictly TOS, and they were absolutely 100% against the new show at the time. They were just hating on it to hate on it and couldn't see the merit in it. And they were appalled that, like, oh, how dare they? They took Starbuck and made her a woman. Well, it turns out it happened to be a pretty good choice because the Starbuck we got in the 2004 series ended up to be, I mean, you can make an argument she's the most iconic Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica we've ever had.
Yeah.
But it was a good choice of casting. And that's one of the cases where you can gender swap a character and have it work out right. Because the cool thing is, Starbuck wasn't portrayed as an over-the-top heroine. She just did her job. She was flawed. She had alcohol problems. She had, relationship issues. She was just a hot mess. Yeah. But when the chips were down, she could fight like hell and she could pull you out in an emergency. But I mean, she was flawed. The characters were flawed. So the gender swaps that they did have or race swaps, they worked because they weren't
ridiculous back then as they are now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know a lot of people who hated the reboots of these different shows, even whether or not they liked the gender stuff or race stuff, purely because they kind of liked that old campy style more. They didn't like the over the intense drama styles and stuff. And so you had those fan bases, even among the original fans, that did not agree as to why.
Right, exactly.
There's always been divisions in fan bases, always.
I mean, well, so look at Star Trek, and you guys, and and we know from being Star Trek fans. There's a lot of TOS fans that want nothing to do with TNG era stuff. They swear by TOS and that's it.
Yeah, and
You
I tend
know?
to be as well. I'm not a fan of Enterprise and past, but everything before I like, and that's just the problem comes when on either side they get into their mired group because they want people this way, this way, this way, this way, and they don't want to experience anything different other than their viewpoint or their experience they want. It should be about which one appeals to you, which storylines fit you, which style fits you, not what the stupid characters look like or sound like or any of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the brilliance that they did with Starbuck for 2004, and it's granted it's been a few years since I've seen the whole show, but I remember in that miniseries, Starbuck was in a relationship with Leah Dahmer's brother, and when he died, that's kind of like is where all of her flaws came from. Like they gave a dynamic between the three of those characters, even though the little brother was gone pretty much in the first 10 minutes of that episode. But they gave a dynamic to her where like she was having a relationship with this guy who was kind of close to the chest, but she was still trying to do her job. And the writing approach to this was not that, oh, let's just make her a woman. It's like, okay, if we do make her a woman, how can we make this uniquely her and not have it sort of be like pulling you out of the show? Like, how do we integrate it within the show? Same thing with what they did with Boomer and from the last name is Park. I can't remember her first name. Like everything that they did with that, they made sure that their choice had something to it and that they could actually explore with it. I don't get the same level of effort from some of these other things here.
Yeah, and that's I think part of the problem with the modern stuff is they're so interested in their political agendas, they kind of play it safe. As long as they can hit those certain tick boxes, they don't really put a lot of focus in the story or the concept behind it. Or as long as they hit those tick boxes, they don't focus on making the character complex, deep, troubled, anything that makes them relatable, human. As long as they get their tick boxes. And I've seen it on both sides.
Yeah, and that's very antithetical to the writing approach and even to the business, like where I am in Hollywood. Like I'm not there now. I'm visiting my sister right now. But in Hollywood, everybody on the lower tier, middle tier, they're all about character. Like they don't care about the politics. They don't care about what's going on. They're thinking, I want to write something that's going to last 10, 15 years from now, because that's what usually helps your business. But then you have small pockets of people who are like in the higher end of the middle tier or way up on the top. They're like, well, you know, we have a responsibility with our entertainment. Entertainment has changed society before, like in the 60s and 70s. We got to do that again. And I like a lot of us are in a position where it's like we argue against it, but there's not much influence we have now because not enough of us in our traditional mindset with regards to just telling great story with great characters has made enough money to say, yo, we've done it better with this way, and we're able to also incorporate some of the things that you're asking for, like you know, more different types of faces, different types of backgrounds. But it's sort of like an abandonment of the normalization, which is because you could take a look at the 80s. Like it's a silly show, but it's a lot of fun. TJ Hooker, they have a character who comes in every once in a while who's in a wheelchair, and they don't acknowledge that he's in a wheelchair. He's a detective that's in a few episodes in like the third, fourth season. He's really good at his job. He's really wise. There's one episode where like one of the characters loses his eyesight for a day, and that's when he actually reaches out to the guy in the wheelchair and be like, hey, how do you deal with it? And he's like, you just deal with it. Like that's part of life. And they completely normalize it. And that's how you sort of create your quoting social progress type of thing, is where you say that, yes, even though there's rarities with regards to minorities, disabilities, tragedies, it's a normal part of life. It's part of the suffering we go through. Yeah. It's not to be held up high as a pedestal. It's about to be treated with respect, courtesy, and love. And you just run through it that way. And that's where you have your fun and interesting stories. And that's where you don't placate to a really, really small base that may not give you the money you want. You end up bringing those people in along with the larger audience that can empathize with those situations.
Yeah. And to the other, even if they want to make these, you know, especially when you're looking at superhero, historical and stuff, and you can really do these things where you're focusing specifically on one culture, one event that's maybe even small, but a lot of people would be interested in hearing about that and stuff or experiencing that. we can bring them in a way that would be decent and stuff, but it's got to be focusing on not just one, but on the interactions within and stuff. And the problem I have is they play on the same characters and the same mythologies over and over. And then they just swap them if they get bored with them. Well, then it screws up with the original, but it also, what do you get that's unique to the people you're trying to appeal to? Why aren't we going to those cultures and finding their history, their mythology, and trying to share it with the public?
That's a great question. I mean, what it comes down to is there's also marketing. Like, marketing has way more influence in Hollywood now than it ever did before. And it basically it's the best job ever, because it's the one where marketers can say, I don't know how to market this, and they still keep their jobs afterwards. Where if you were working at a normal job, you said, I don't know how to like sweep the floor, you'd be fired. But in marketing, when it's like, I don't know how to market this, it's like, well, okay, I guess we just toss out the script or the story idea and find something else that's more marketable. And all I'm thinking of in the side is like, you're a marketer. It's your damn job to market. Like, figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, why are you doing this in the first place? Like, the script got to the point where people are willing to pay and invest in it, so it's got something to it. But if you're saying I can't market it, what the heck is everybody else missing if they like the project this far? So it's really like, it's boggling. It's really boggling. I think if they could just find marketers who are like, they see a show like, for instance, I don't know, if they made, I don't know, if they made a show like, I don't know, Vixen from like the DC Comics, and they're like, well, I don't know how to market this, but you know what? I'm going to take up the challenge, and I'm going to make this damn thing sing. That's kind of what you want in your team of developments and marketings. But today they're like, well, nobody knows about her, so we're not going to even bother. It doesn't matter that she's a DC property. We'll put her as a guest star in another show or something and see how that tracks. And I'm like, no, that's not, that's the laziest form of your job. And you're supposed to be getting stuff out there.
See, this is the thing is, I'm not good at finishing stories because I have very screwed up short-term memory, so it takes me forever to write anything, because it's once I've passed the day, I don't hardly remember what I've done for several weeks. So it's like one day, several weeks off. So I've got a whole bunch of stories I've been working on for a very long time that aren't quite finished, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I've been there.
Really want to see and appeal to people, and you've seen all these posts going, well, let's find a character for this race or this ethnicity or this style. Well, I've seen so many of these recently where they're talking about these appeals of these things, all saying, well, we need more women, we need more minority women and stuff, we need more strong women. Well, how come all those people who keep saying they want those things, if I say, well, then why don't you look into the white buffalo women of the Sioux, instantly block me? Because it was the American equivalent of Amazonian warriors.
See, I want to bring up a comment that Brian just made in the chat, and he said, Mr. Robot is good, but I noped out at the big reveal, just couldn't keep my interest. And see, that's a valid concern too. I hope that this guy takes the, sort of, I hope he takes the lessons from 2004 as to how they pulled things off so well. And, the beauty of the 2004 show is whenever they had a big story arc during a season, they did a slow burn on it perfectly to where the payoff was worthwhile. And I don't think the show really sort of lost its luster until the final season. And if you ask a lot of BSG fans that watched 2004 show, that they'll concur with that, because pretty much most of us, we saw the writing on the wall that it was kind of getting a little bit lean in season 4, and we were at that point just waiting for the story to kind of end and hope that it ended on a decent note, which it did. It was still a weird sort of ending, but it was satisfying to a pretty fair degree. The thing is the cool thing about the show, though, is for the most part, it did a wonderful job of taking story arcs, slow burning them, and really rewarding the payoffs. And that's the thing that I hope that this gentleman from Mr. Robot understands, because if he follows that same formula, this show could potentially anchor that streaming platform. And you'll actually have an incentive where people be like, okay, I don't mind dropping $6-7 a month to actually watch this show, because the show's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, what I liked about Battlestar Galactica is that even though they had those slow burn stories, there was other stuff going on that kind of made it really, like, I had to keep leaning in. Like, I didn't feel like I could just sit back, relax, and doze off with a slow burn story like you can with other shows when they try to do a slow burn story. With Galactica, there's always some sort of stake going on that was keeping my interest, even though some parts of those big reveals are being deliberately stretched out just a little bit longer just to build up your anticipation.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was always multifaceted stories, because you had multiple arcs going on. You had the arc that was going on in the middle of a particular episode that needed to be resolved. You had the action. You had the ever-present threat of Cylon attack. You had so many things going on. So you had layers to each episode. So it was nice, because they did not have to compromise the big, story arcs. They had nice little, medium size and small story arcs over like 1 or 2 episodes, whatever, where there was a conflict that needed to be resolved between characters or something like that. And that was good. And, Brian's correct. Actual character development. That was one thing that 2004 BSG had. There wasn't really, you haven't really seen much of it since. There's only been, I think, a couple of television shows that have done it well enough that you could, say that they did it satisfactory, to at least to close to that level.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, when I think of like character development over a long series, I go back to like the comedy of Cheers with Sam Malone. Like at the start of that, he's a womanizer, and at the end, he's trying to recover from being like that type of creepy guy. Also, I think Ronald D. Moore's experience with Star Trek is what really helped him benefit with the character development of Galactica, especially with the influence from Ira Stephen Bear and DS9. Like that just meshes. You see some of the parallels in the effort, and yeah, that's I think what led to the success of Battlestar Galactica 04.
Oh man, Script Doctor, let me tell you, dude, I was so happy because and not many people know this fact, and this was something I always love to let people know. Like, if you watch DS9, the one thing that a lot of us that watch Deep Space Nine and were big fans of Deep Space Nine, the thing that we felt kind of cheated on was the fact that we never got to see the Bajoran occupation like fully, and see like the story arc behind that, and we actually got that
And they
story arc
at the end.
Well, no, we got that story arc in Battlestar Galactica. Ron Moore, who was, the main person in charge at the time during Deep Space Nine, as far as writing and putting together the stories, he brought that over because they never got to finish that. He brought that over, and in season 3 of the 2004 show, they actually, with the new Caprica arc, they used a lot of the stuff that they had for the Bajoran occupation and put that into BSG. And it was amazing because, a lot of us that were also Star Trek fans, we kind of got our payoff from that in BSG. So that was cool. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, there was a story arc with Dean Stockwell and the actress that played Colonel Ty's wife, right? That was back on Caprica, if I recall correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, that was where you saw the kind of the seeds planted of them interacting. So, so you kind of saw the interaction between one of the final five and one of the later Cylon models, which was cool.
Yeah.
But you got the seeds of that back then on New Caprica, before anybody knew about anything else, and that was awesome. But see, these are the touches that made BSG so cool, because they would seed stories, plant them, and grow them slowly, and you got that slow burn, and then everything made sense later.
No, I get what you mean, especially with the DS9 stuff. There was two big things to me that were disappointing. Was they really didn't. I think for how much they focused on the spirituality of the Bajorans, they really didn't focus a lot on the survival stuff and what they had to go through and all that. They really didn't. But it's also they went really weird the last season, and I know part of that was because Terry, she wanted out, and they had to get rid of Jadzia, and it ended up screwing up a bunch of the characters. But they also it wasn't just that. A lot of the other stuff just started getting really weird and out of place and not matching the early seasons too.
Right, exactly. And that can happen at times. It's just that's the evolution of a show. And if you lose like certain key talent at different times, that can be an issue. And sometimes the person you get to replace the other talent that you lost just doesn't fit the bill just the same way the other person did. And that's a common thing. It happens. And then sometimes it can kind of disjoint the
entire cast pretty much.
It can disjoint the continuity, because maybe when you're writing for that character, you're kind of limited because the person playing the character at that point isn't the same as before and doesn't have the same range as before. So, there's so many different things to that, but all in all,
still an amazing show. But hey,
yeah, the 2004 BSG did so many good things, and that's why I said, a lot of the hardcore TOS people back in those days, when we'd have like debates in the different on the different fandom boards and things like that, there's a lot of the TOS people really didn't give the 2004 show any sort of merit or really kind of deep dive into it to see just exactly the good things that it brought to the table, which it brought a lot. I mean, there was a reason at the time that it was critically acclaimed, and it was literally the best show on television, because there's this skit that you can find on YouTube, and I'm not a big fan of Portlandia, but there was this one little episode of Portlandia. There's a skit on there where they show, the guy and his wife, they got stuff to do, whatever, and they're like, oh, we're gonna sit down and watch BSG real quick. And the next thing you know, they end up binge watching the whole thing over like 4 days, and you get behind on their mortgage payment, and then people are like foreclosing on their house and all kind of crazy shit. And it's hilarious. But that's the type of show BSG was. It was fucking riveting, man.
And see, for me, I will honestly be, I never had the opinion one way or the other as to why to watch the original versus this or stuff. It came to, I grew up with the original. When this one came out, I was in college with no TV or anything, and then dealing with being newly married and trying to move and start a life. And it just didn't have time for much shows or anything. But I always enjoyed the original, even though they didn't have nearly enough episodes at that even,
Yeah, I mean, I first saw the original when I was a kid. I thought it was a lot of fun. I did have some disappointments with the new BSG. For starters, like all the promotional stuff beforehand, I thought that the Battlestar was going to be completely an analog ship, like no computers at all, in order to save itself from the Cylons. But they kind of sort of split the difference a little bit in the execution. I was also like, I don't remember like any aliens in the '04 series. Like there was aliens in definitely in the original of the '78, but
Mhm.
like this one, it was all humans or Cylons, and I was like, okay, so there's no other species that they encounter or threats. That's kind of really crazy.
That is something you'd be feeling kind of as a little out of place. Now I'm going to distract this for one sec, since
Sure.
he brought DS9 into this, and ask him what his favorite character from it was.
Who was?
What your favorite character in DS9 was, since you brought that into this.
Oh, mine absolutely 100%. Like mine was Cisco, and besides that, I would probably say Jadzia Dax. Not so much Ezri. Probably Cisco and Jadzia. Yeah, I would have to say. I mean, everybody liked Worf, but Worf came over from TNG, like so he was like just kind of co-opted into it.
But I don't think of him really as a DS9 character as much as he fit well into the cast when he moved there.
And I liked Garrick too. Garrick's
my favorite.
I was a big Garrick.
I loved how twisted and evil he was. I actually loved the Doctor and Garrick the most.
Well, Garrick really wasn't evil though. Hey, when you get
had his elements, depending on the episode. Boy, can he go evil.
Yeah, he was
Garrick and Dr. Bashir, because they treaded that line pretty well. There was their deep troubled past. There was the evil within, but also the good they wanted to do for people and stuff. And they tended to be a little more devious and fun.
Yeah, Garrick was complex, and that's why he was so cool, because he was like not good, not bad. I mean, he was just a former spy.
Well, more than that, Garrick was a guy who he came to an epiphany that he was so heavily influenced by Cardassian society because obviously he's Cardassian, but he came to that epiphany that like what they're doing is not exactly in the best interest of Cardassian or himself. And he's trying to reconcile with that throughout the entire series, and he does it so subtly that unless you are like a diehard fan, I guess binge watching it over and over, you don't pick up on that. And that's what really made him interesting. And he was in a lot of episodes, but not a huge amount, like compared to some others.
Slip where they kind of let it slip that part of why he got kicked from Cardassia is because he was protecting Bajorans, and then when that got out to more people, he started pretending that wasn't the reason.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, but
so as much as he would pretend, there were telltale signs they gave his character that they worked really well into the story. You'd see in every episode where you knew when he was saying something serious and then he was trying to hide it later because he didn't want to admit that later. So it got complicated with him.
Yeah, it did. But that's when a character's really good, is when they're complex.
I know, when they're complex, you have to sit there and really focus on them and watch them to understand their peaks, their highs, their lows, and their abilities.
He's not just Sorry, go ahead, Drew.
No, go ahead, finish your thought, buddy.
Well, I was just going to say, like, Garrick he's not just complex, but he maintains his convictions throughout that entire series. Like, he came to a decision of what type of character he's going to be when we first see him, and then we just slowly understand more and more about him, and
stayed on it.
Exactly, and they just, because he's all about what's the best interest for Cardassia, and even though Cardassia is kind of a society of paranoia and a little bit of fascism, he still understands the difference between right and wrong that we understand. And that's what makes him interesting and also an outcast to, the regime of the Cardassia Prime.
And yeah, I just want to say before like I get into a serious big thought here, man, I am blessed tonight because I legit like put this panel together, like it just kind of came together the way it did, and man, this turned out this is awesome. I mean, I got awesome panelists. Make sure that you guys, if you haven't subscribed to Rosetta's channel, subscribe to Rosetta, because she has good content, and she does off the cuff fun streams a lot of times, and it's cool. And remember, we're all we got each other's back, so
We're all crazy nerd.
we're all crazy nerds. We're all Fandom Menace. So everybody, supports everybody. So let's keep that love going on. And Script Doctor is knocking it out of the park tonight, man. My dude.
He is amazingly on ball with this information.
I mean, bro.
I have to tell you, I'm impressed.
Bro, you came with fire tonight.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. I mean,
we have 14 subscribers, Script.
Yeah.
Well,
dude.
Well, okay. So one,
right. Everybody get over there. Everybody move it.
Well, primarily, like, my channel is more of a hobby channel. I do it whenever I'm in like a writer's block stage or something. I do have a video that I'm trying to get out for Monday. I've already recorded the audio. I just got to do the photoshopping, which that takes more time than the writing and recording.
Absolutely understand that. And you know what? My channel's mostly just me showing off my nature photography and talking about climbs and shit that I'm doing. So we're good with that. And
yeah.
I gotta say, I've so enjoyed talking to you. And if you want to hop in when I'm doing my stream Monday, come visit. I'd love to talk to you more.
But see, the thing is this is what I was looking for, in a panel, because when it boils down to it, now you guys understand, even if you don't watch, even if you haven't seen a particular show, when you can understand the logistics and just exactly as a fan what you can appreciate about good entertainment, you can have good deep discussions like this about it, and this is what I really wanted to get out of tonight. So I'm really happy that you guys swooped in, saved the day at the last minute, but it turned out to be an amazing panel. And Script Doctor, I definitely want to do stuff with you going forward.
Happy to talk to you. He sent you the link.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm happy to talk to you guys too. I mean, Drew, like, I discovered you through the Anas Abdeen stuff like a while ago because I was overhearing things in some offices about this gamer that has a game developer that has like similar things to Star Trek Discovery, and I'm like, Star Trek Discovery, I hate that show. And then I started Googling it, and I saw a couple of weird articles. It got me onto Gary, which got me back onto Bounding into Comics, and I'm just like, oh my god, like, I mean, I don't know 100% about copyright law, but I'm seeing enough here that I, as an audience member, would be confused as to which property is which is kind of the foundation of how copyright claims are made. And that just kind of led me on to do this. And then work kind of got weak, so I started to do a couple of videos. And I'm just glad to meet you guys and see people of like different areas with great shared fandom and great new perspectives. It's a lot of fun.
I have to say, I stumbled into him just talking to people in Nerdrotic stream one night.
Yeah, that's how I left.
We kind of been buddy to each other ever since.
Yeah, we just kind of would BS in the middle of Nerdrotic chat.
Especially since with how busy he is, he can't notice much of anything. He can barely keep up with super chats.
No,
he'd start talking, and he's trying, bless his heart, to talk to people, catch all of his supers, and try to notice some of the comments and talk to people. Bless his heart.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and we're all just BSing while he's talking, so we're all having conversations about different things he brought up.
Well, honestly, Rosetta, I mean, to me, I understand the differences between YouTube and Twitch, obviously, but for like 2-3 years, I've been a Twitch streamer up till now, and so I mean, it's no different than when you watch big streamers on Twitch, because their chat's moving like 1,000 miles an hour. The streamer 9 times out of 10 doesn't even see like what people are saying. So it's so very hard.
Which is exactly why good wrenches are so valuable. The more people you get, and the more streams you do, because you need those people to help you rein things in, let you know when things are important being said and stuff. Because it's hard. It is, even when you have only a few people watching. If they're talking to you seriously, there's a lot to do.
But the thing with I mean, but that's just how it is with bigger streaming personalities. When they've got an audience that big, it's just what you're in for. When you go in to watch them, it's very hard. You're trying to respond to something that they're saying on the screen, whatever, and it's like you're lucky if they'll even, see a response. So it just comes with the territory. It's one of those things. But
not saying anything bad about it. I was just like, bless his heart, he's trying so hard to keep up with stuff that night. And we all just started talking because I don't remember what he said that we all just started really rambling to each other on.
But I like this. I will say I like this format because I like being able to have panel discussions and things like this. I really wanted to do this because I on Twitch I did a few like talk streams, and I had people on stream and we discussed stuff via audio, like over like we didn't have a cam feed up, but we had discussed it over audio because I just had people jump in my Discord, and I'm broadcasting over OBS, so it's picking up through my OBS, so people on stream can hear it. But this is cool to have an actual like panel discussion, man. And I'm enjoying it. I really am. This is the first time. I think this is my third stream on YouTube. This is the first time I've actually gotten a panel in here to talk about something, and I'm so stoked about it. And I know it's going to take a while before I build a following, but man, I am just so happy. You guys, seriously, you guys
writing credits. You should get it in no time. You deserve it, absolutely.
I mean, you guys made my night. Script Doctor, I'm just blown away with like, dude,
his wealth of knowledge on the subject.
Well, yeah, his wealth of knowledge on the subject, but just the way that he knows, stuff about the entertainment industry, and just his knowledge of sci-fi and even other genres of programming and also television, movies. I mean, he knows it. And, you got a pretty good amount of knowledge yourself, Rosetta. I mean, you're no slouch. But yeah, I mean, Script Doctor, dude, you are just, wow.
Well, I've kind of been on the fringe of the industry for the last 16 years. Yeah, like I can pretty much.
He's our insider voice. Thank you very much. I am just little nature freak out in the middle of nowhere in the sticks of the country. I just love nerd stuff, so I want to be involved.
Yeah, she's that chick in the sticks.
Well, if you want to understand the context of where I am, so let's think about it like 3 or 4 rings, kind of like in The Mask of Zorro that Anthony Hopkins is showing to his student whose name is escaping me for right now. So in the center, you got like Bob Iger, J.J. Abrams, and all those guys. Then you've got another tier of in the ring outside, which is kind of like your Joss Whedons and your like lower guys, your Jon Favreaus and what have you. Then you've got like the outer skirts, which is like Robert Meyer Burnett, and then you've got where I usually am, which is just outside of him, where I'm in between the independents. And then sometimes I'll get a job where I'm way more deeper in, where I'm into more of the Jon Favreau area of stuff, where I get to talk to like actors, bigger producers and whatnot. But most of the time I'm usually bounced back out again because that job's done, so I'm not needed. And if it proves successful, then I'll be pulled in again. But if not, I'm just back on the outside, just looking in and plugging away with my own content and my own work and trying to get it out there. So there's nothing stable about the entertainment industry. Like every actor, every producer, every director, they think this is going to be their last job, pretty much.
And to one other thing here, Supreme, we're going to have to someday have a panel where we and you really talk about places where music has been influenced by comics influenced by music, and where both have overlapped in history, mythology, and folklore too.
Oh yeah, well that cross pollinates
because that is a topic that is really fun.
That cross pollinates a lot.
Yeah, that's really fun to delve into when you start looking at where they interact.
Well, see, this is another reason. Okay, and again, boom, this goes back on topic. This is another reason why BSG is so good, because it ties in not only mythology, but it also ties in different systems of belief and religion. So, I mean, you've got a whole different kind of treasure trove of stuff to play with that you don't normally have in sci-fi, because science fiction, there's always usually been that thing where it's either catered 100% to science or nothing. And BSG broke that because it brought in spirituality and science.
And, yeah, there were spirits and there were religions and cultures that were showcased in Star Trek, but Star Trek was always very literary.
Right, exactly.
Language, history, literature, how people develop, stuff like that. It was there as elements to how the cultures developed.
But it was all
more of the spiritual, but they threw in so much action and stuff, it still wasn't the main focus.
Yeah,
sci-fi's always been trying to tread that line, have the spirituality, and still be able to be science-based. And it's a difficult line. Like
BSG, actually, I mean, it's very unique from that aspect because you have mythology involved, and you also have, direct religion and spirituality. There's no, it's the only, I think, franchise that really kind of explores all those ideals. There's nothing else like it that I've seen. Not at all in sci-fi. That's why BSG is unique to me. And you really got it in the 2004 show because you had some of that aspect in 78, but man, 2004 show really kind of took it to a new level.
Well, 2004 show also had a lot more episodes that being able to air. I mean, sadly, the 78 got canceled way too soon, and then 1980 was their Hail Mary.
we don't mention people that like BSG, both of them, which I do. I have a soft spot for the original series, man. We do not mention Galactica 1980. Those.
It was silly and fun, but I mean, obviously, it's not as superior as the other two iterations.
Dude, you're being kind, ST. You are being kind.
I'm a Lorne Green fan. It's really hard for me to not hate, to not like despise or be disappointed with the stuff that he does, even when it got really silly, where he's confiding in an 8-year-old kid.
I know, man.
Because he's just selling it.
Poor Lorne Green at that time. He's probably thinking, God, what I wouldn't give to be doing an Alpo commercial right now.
Actually, I think he was wondering, why am I not in Airplane 2?
Right? Exactly. But no, I really think they can actually take this somewhere if they really sort of focus on what made everything successful, and they stay out of Wokeville, man. Just don't even build an apartment in Wokeville. Just stay out. Don't even take residency in Wokeville. You don't have to.
We can only cross our fingers at this point, and I will say this, that they are able to stay out of woke and they're able to make money, and NBC like booms conversely compared to like how CBS has kind of drizzled around. If NBC booms with their Battlestar Galactica spinoff, if you want to call it, it's going to turn a lot of heads and people are going to start thinking differently. But I think NBC is also launching The Office on that service as well, and that's going to hook everybody.
Yeah. Hey, look who's here. Brian. We got Brian in the house.
Hello, Brian.
What is up, my guy? To just think he's getting his mic situated and things like that.
Gonna say kind of being a little devious and ornery because you briefly mentioned 1980. What do you expect trying to do Battlestar Galactica with freaking Dick Van Dyke's son?
Yeah, I
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, man, I could never, for whatever reason, it's funny to me because, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, you guys, but oh God, I gotta say this, like every time that I've seen Barry Van Dyke in something, that series is getting ready to die.
The only film he was ever in that lasted was Diagnosis Murder, and that's because it was his dad's.
It's like, man, I remember, because oh god, I love those cheesy action shows when I was in when I was growing up as a kid in the 80s, man. I loved Airwolf and Knight Rider. I mean, who didn't? So,
Right.
when I was watching Airwolf, dude, okay, they get to where, what was it, like season 3 was the last one with Jan Michael Vincent, and then he like went apeshit crazy because he was like all messed up on alcohol and drugs. So they didn't really bring back any of the other casts. They did a season 4, man, and I just remember, God, they had Perry Van Dyke in there, and it was, oh god.
I'm not trying to be horrible and mean, but I never thought he had any skill outside of hanging on to his dad's skill.
No, he was not good, man.
He was okay in Diagnosis Murder, although if you sit there and pay attention, you could sit there and pick apart his character too.
But he was like seriously,
What he did was just like horrible.
You know how in Battlestar they have that line, "You are the harbinger of death, Kara Thrace." Well,
Oh, dude, yeah, I just watched that one, episode 9.
yeah, the harbinger of death for any TV show back in the 80s was Barry Van Dyke.
So he was the Summer Glau before.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Brian, you read the article, everything else briefly. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What do you think the direction should be? That
honestly, I'm kind of hoping for something like mid Cylon First War.
Okay, fair enough.
Just because I learned about all the different classes of Battlestars.
Yeah.
I went off on a tangent last night, and I was like, how do they land and how do they maneuver them? And I actually found a video on YouTube, surprise, and it taught me a lot. Like I really want to see something like that starts towards like maybe the last third or half, and like I want to see the Pegasus and why it was built with the 2 decks. Like that's awesome. I just want to see the I want to see more of the guts and details of it.
Well,
That's what I enjoyed about it.
If you have Steam, actually, there's a game out there, and for those of you that are watching, guys, if you have Steam and you actually like the strategy genre of gaming, there's a game out there called Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. It's based in the Ron Moore universe. It is during the period of the First Cylon War, and there are a whole bunch of new and different Colonial and Cylon ships, and some nods to 1978 because you have the original style Battlestars in there.
Which kind of strategy based though? Because there's several types. I'm very old-fashioned strategy, like the early RPGs where you actually had to plot the characters so they could combine attacks and stuff like that. Really legit.
This is like
styles.
This is like, okay, Rosetta, this is like one of those games where you're moving your units, building fleets.
Kind of like a Warcraft type of deal?
More like early Warcraft to Risk style kind of games.
Similar, yeah.
Okay. Because I remember when World of Warcraft was not online, they had the 4-player mode you could play, and you played like Risk trying to kill each other.
Yeah, that's traditional Warcraft. I remember those games.
I loved those.
Yeah, Blizzard Entertainment, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but this is like more almost like an RTS. So you're dealing with units, counter units, type of thing. But it's really cool.
I'm good at strategy games in those old styles.
But the thing that's really cool about it is it gives you it has the game itself has a really good story via cutscenes and the different side missions that you have to accomplish, and it sort of explains. It gives you blueprints and readouts of all the units. So like Gravedigger, if you're into that stuff, you can check that game will have you in heaven, dude.
I would definitely have to check it out. I have Steam. I just don't play on the PC too often. But
Yeah.
I always got respect for PC people. That's where I started, honestly.
Yeah, they have it on. I believe Battlestar Galactica Deadlock is on all platforms now. It's on Xbox, Steam, PS4, so you can get it on any one of them.
Sweet.
It's just
Let's check it out.
yeah, it's just one of those that you go in the marketplace and you'll have to download since there's not a hard copy for it.
You don't know
Yeah.
how much you just made me interested when you brought up blueprints and more schematics and stuff. I am the girl who has physical blueprints of the different enterprises and Star Trek ships and space stations.
Yeah, it has like little blueprints in the game. It'll show you the different units. It's pretty neat. But yeah, I go ahead and finish your thought, Gravedigger, because I totally derailed you.
Yeah,
No, it's cool. I just want to see like more of like I want to see multi Battlestar battles. Like seeing the Galactica and the Pegasus going at stuff at the same time was kind of really awesome. And I want to see what like all the different classes of Battlestars working together to take on a more massive enemy, or to just go in and completely wipe people out. I want to see what that would be like.
that
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that game out.
Well, see,
times 1,000. More ships, more details, more schematics, all that. Yes.
well, see, you know that's another thing. You know, you can have those big like really action battles that sci-fi fans enjoy, you know, in their programming, because that was one of the great things about Deep Space Nine. They integrated space battles in to you know, I mean they knew how to use budget. They didn't only certain episodes, same way 2004 BSG did, but when they did, man, it was awesome. And you could do that if they have the setting, and I agree with you 100%, Gravedigger. If they have it during that time, you know, and you can see Colonial Fleet at the full strength with different battle groups, man, that's awesome.
Right?
Sorry, I'm having my friends over here at that idea. I'm just seeing you're going, battle.
Yeah, that would be a great set piece. And like if you got to see perspectives of the other commanders and what they're fighting for and their own strategies, that would be really entertaining conflict, because you can just tell like Galactica wants to do this maneuver, but the Pegasus says, no, we can do this one. And it's like, well, we don't have time to debate it, so something's going to happen. And that really amps up the drama and the stakes. And I mean, makes good television, in my opinion.
See, yeah, absolutely. You guys are all right about this. You're right on track. Anything with lots of battles and schematics is perfect. You guys are great.
I think that's one of the things that brings all the Battlestar people together. Like, even if they are only like, oh, I only dig the Pegasus, it's like, okay, all right, I remember that one spinoff movie that happened. But it's the details. So as long as this guy understands that, like, most of us are really enjoying the details that go into it, like, there are so many military people when you jump on like Battlestar information, it's like, oh my god, this movie, like the show was awesome, because the amount of detail that went into just telling the story. It's like, okay, this guy has to understand that that's what's actually important. Everything else is awesome, but as long as the detail's there, I think he'll be able to get away with it, which, you know.
Yes.
And you got to make those details accessible and really entertaining and almost like invisible too. Like you don't want to bog people down in like a This Old House type of take on Battlestar Galactica. You want to make them like not realize that while they're on the show, and then they watch it again. They're like, oh, he did that maneuver, and or he went over and here did that station, and he did this, and like you're just so hooked into the show that you don't pick it up until you actually want to sit down and really, really take a look at it. Yeah, that's how you're gonna make it sell.
I feel a lot better though. Like after a script doctor kind of laid out the sort of way that this guy has put Mr. Robot together, and sort of this guy's credentials and his style. I kind of feel like, you know, he'll be okay. And if he gives latitude to the specific writers and directors, I think it might be okay. Yeah. But the only problem is, again, you know, it's an NBC property. NBC notorious for wokeness.
How many of y'all have seen Mr. Robot?
Oh, I watched it here and there.
I know SD has. I haven't.
No.
All right. So, okay.
I'm like halfway through, I think. I'm definitely in this. Yeah, I'm in the second season.
So you're at the big reveal then?
Not yet, but close, I think. Yeah. Wait, maybe not. Hold on. I got to go through my thing because I always watch it in the background, and then
Well, it's
like I'm 10 minutes into the episode, and all of a
hint
sudden
I
I'm
can
watching
give
the
you
episode.
is that it kind of feels like watching another movie you've seen before. Like I saw it coming from like episode 2, and I'm like, wait, is this like a Fight Club nod?
Oh yeah, well I mean I can kind of see that, especially with the tone.
Yeah, like it all felt like pretty much the same, and like that's what I dug about it. But then like that happened, and like I watched like the next 4 episodes, and I was like, okay, I don't. As long as he doesn't become too predictable.
Well, yeah, that's the danger of any show, really, is that you kind of get into a comfortable situation and you just kind of want to ride that wave as long as you can because you know you're going to at least hold on to your core. Yeah, I mean, I watch whatever I can when I can on my commutes or when I'm like writing. With Mr. Robot, I'm like 10 minutes in, I'm typing, and all of a sudden I hear something on the episode, and I have to turn around, and then I got to watch for the rest of the show, and I'm like, oh, damn it.
Yeah, like it starts off as a show, like you feel like you can, like, oh no, I can Reddit and watch this, or I can surf and do this at the same time. And you're like, oh man, okay.
And then nope,
you spend so much time backing up to try and watch it. Like, okay, I just got to put everything down and watch it.
Wait, what happened here? I got to go back 5 more minutes. Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, it's awesome writing, but I just, as long as he doesn't fall for any of the tropes, I think it'll be awesome. Like, I just hope that he's aware of them and avoids them.
That's a hard thing to do, and one thing that I'm a big advocate for is like love what you love, but don't try and put all your eggs or all your faith behind like a single writer or a single director because they're all human. They're all able to fail. I mean, I loved Christopher Nolan when he never got a budget to his films, but as soon as they started throwing money at him, his creativity kind of went in the backwards almost. And I'm like, come on, I know you're better than this. Why are you just... Well, it's like, I have a problem. Okay, here's money, and that'll solve it. And I'm like, no, that's not how you make good films and art. You want to have the struggle. You want to have your own obstacles to invent new, entertaining ways of telling a story. So that's why I'm like, I have my favorites, but it's like, yeah, you tell me Steven Spielberg is going to make another movie or Martin Scorsese is going to make another movie. I'm like, that's great. I like their past stuff, but I'm still going to hold it to the same standards as I would anything else from someone who I don't know because I want to be entertained. I don't want to fall into a pit of blindly liking something just because I like that filmmaker or that writer or that actor. Like, again, I have that issue with Battlestar Galactica 1980. I like Lauren Green. It's a ridiculous show, but I like Lauren Green. So, I mean, you put it on, I'm like, I'll watch it, yeah, but like, you know, it's an objectively bad show.
Yeah, it's almost a shameful joy.
Objectively bad actor.
You mean you don't want a magical flying motorcycle with no explanation of how it flies?
No, I mean, that's out of Megaforce, isn't it?
No, they had those in Galactica 1980.
No, they did. Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, that's where they got the idea, right? Like Megaforce got it from 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, you know, the hijacking where they like have their laser pistols on them and they just take out the guy conveniently and nobody's like, hey, what was that blue light that hit the guy?
Right?
Yeah.
Dude.
Can I just point out, you talk about some of these crappy shows, and I'm just sitting here trying not to swear too much.
Like 80 special effects were so good. You can swear. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm not monetized. I mean, it's like, my God, I have like what?
Don't do it on other people's streams. Right?
I have like 23
subs that you're lipping it half the time.
I have a noob channel, man. I mean, I have 23 subs. I'm not gonna be like getting in trouble.
Ooh, fuck it all, right?
Exactly.
As long as you avoid music, you'll be all right.
Right. But see, here's the thing, oh man.
I'm crazy anyways tonight. I'm fighting with it constantly, so
the cheesy 80s special effects were hilarious. They really were. You gotta love those. Like
that's like one of the reasons I like going back and rewatching stuff. Is just so you can see.
Like I still love watching like cheesy episodes.
Like, oh man.
Yeah, $6 Million Man. Those are the best cheesy special effects.
I really enjoyed the original Mission Impossible TV series with like Dan Briggs and his team with Martin Landau and Barbara Bain.
Right.
like it was really suspenseful, and it was all about the discreetness of getting the job done. It wasn't anything like the movies where it's all like big explosions or crazy stunts. It was like, no, we can't let anyone see what we're doing, and that's what put you on the edge of the seat.
Yeah.
And if anyone's going to do a revival for Mission Impossible, that's what I want. And I would bring in like the Dan Briggs character so it doesn't conflict with Tom Cruise. Just like Dan Briggs, his own Mission Impossible team, IMF team, doing his own thing, miniseries, like 12 episode seasons. Each episode is its own contained mission. Just make it really intense, really fun, low budget. I think that would probably do really well.
You know, speaking of the fact, since we got about 15, 20 minutes left, because I was going to go till midnight or shortly after. Really quick, it's funny you bring something like that up, Script Doctor, because I wanted to get your take really quick, like Treadstone. Like they're doing the series where it's going to be on USA, and they're spinning off it's set in the Jason Bourne universe, but they're spinning off like, you know, explaining the greater Treadstone project. And you're going to have like all these, I guess, different stories from perspective of all these different sleeper agents that are being mysteriously activated.
I mean, the premise like that is pretty interesting. I don't know how well it's going to be effective because we're in a new area of media and television where studios do now have the opportunity to make a television show that can integrate with a tentpole film. We already saw Disney experimented with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is not the best example, but it kind of works a little bit. And Disney's going to do it with Disney Plus, and other shows are thinking about doing it as well. There's talks that AT&T is thinking about whatever J.J. Abrams is doing. He wants to have a side set of shows on their streaming service to sort of build up the tentpole films of like their Superman, Green Lantern, or Justice League.
Wow.
So whenever you're going like the reversal in this case, where you have the Bourne franchise, and then they're just going to take an offshoot of that and address other sleeper agents, it could work. I mean, there's always room for possibilities. Even bad ideas can sometimes have good rewards. Sorry. So I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm familiar with the older Bourne movies a lot more than the Matt Damon ones. Even though I did like the first two, I kind of like just wasn't really interested in the ones after that. Like Jeremy Renner one didn't really do anything for me.
I've seen all of them. I'm just, you know, it seems to me like they kind of really sort of, especially the last one that Jason Bourne was in. I feel like they kind of explained Treadstone away pretty well, but and then, you know, years and years later, you got the show that pops up. So I don't know. Maybe this will shed some new details, give some new light, and kind of give some depth to the Treadstone project, which I do kind of like the aspect that it's going to show like different sleeper agents, but I just don't know like how well it's going to do. Like they have that, you know, Purge TV series on USA as well. And man, yeah, they do, dude, and it's just so, oh man, it's so stupid.
I don't think you can do it properly in a TV series.
I watched one episode of it and I was like, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah, I remember when the concept went around. I was like, so what is it? One season about the Purge, or is it like the in between the Purges? And I couldn't get a straight answer for a long time.
Yeah,
and I haven't even bothered to check out the show yet. So
yeah, it doesn't seem like they're really, you know, that there's really any sort of rhyme or reason to it. At least the Treadstone show, yeah, you're working with something there, but the Purge one is kind of goofy.
Yeah, like I can see in the Treadstone show, like you have sleeper agents that function exactly as they should, and then the conflict being you have that one agent that tries to resist or what have you. But then again, you risk just making it a mimic of the Jason Bourne series. So my question is, how can you bring something really new to it while still keeping within the premise of the franchise? I don't know yet. There has to be a way. I mean, it's kind of getting done.
I think that it's gonna more kind of. I think the way that if that succeeds, the way they're gonna do it is kind of explore more of the just what went into the cover up of how they kept Treadstone quiet. I think that's what they're gonna get into, and I
so
think
it'll probably be more like a conspiracy political thriller type of show.
yeah, and I think that's the route they should go with it. I mean, you'll have the action that kind of follows the different agents as they get activated and some of the effed up stuff that they do because they're not really in control of their faculties. They're all brainwashed. I mean, let's face it, that's what Treadstone was a brainwashing, like basically sleeper agent program. But the thing is you can switch between that and then get into of course the layers upon layers upon layers of conspiracy and just what it took to hide Treadstone. And when you get into that's where it becomes fascinating because it's almost like art imitating reality because a lot of people at this point look at Washington and you look at the political corruption and you're like, what's under all these layers? Is there really truly, like rogue intelligence community? Is there rogue, politicians? And you start to scratch your head and wonder. So it's like art imitating life.
Oh yeah, I can see it being. I mean, based on that premise, if they do go the way you suspect it would be a pretty intense drama. Like definitely some room for action, but it's mostly going to be like maybe I guess House of Cards level drama and betrayal.
Yeah, I would actually dig that. I think that would kind of hook me if I were watching something like that.
Well, we could just only cross our fingers at this point right now until they break more news on it, right?
Yeah, it's. I think it's supposed to premiere in. I believe it's supposed to premiere in like a week or so. I don't think we did any articles on Bounding about it. So
this next 2 weeks, there's like I think 200 new shows premiering, and good luck trying to follow them all. It's really tough. Like there's so much content now these days.
Yeah, this one starts on the Treadstone starts on the 15th. So yeah, it starts middle of the month. Not too shabby. So so the last thing I want to cover before we call it a night is so we have a lot of the mainstream media coming out and a lot of the Uber SJW media on the lovely all the sites. I always say all the sites that start with V because it seems like that's all they are. Vox, Vice, all those kind of sites.
The Mary Sue.
Yeah, probably that one too. But the thing is you have all of them coming out. Yeah, you got all of them coming out predicting tomorrow all the incel violence that's going to happen. What do you guys think about that for the joke?
If it happens, they created it. They inspired somebody with their fat mouths.
It's like intentional self-terrorism.
It'd be incredibly ironic that these websites speculating of such a thing actually does the inciting of a horrible event, which I hope doesn't actually happen, as opposed to the actual movie. Because I've read the script, I'm seeing the movie tomorrow. It's not really incel-y in any way or form. I think it'll be an okay movie. I don't think it'll be a great movie or a profound movie, but it'll definitely be fun, for sure, entertaining to a lot of the masses. But it's not going to be anything you want to write home about like 4 or 5 months from now.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think it's more like and you guys being around my general age group, you've seen the Anthony Perkins Psycho. I think it's more like that. And I kind of dig that because like when you get into like a deep character study, someone that has like mental stability issues, has a psychotic break, I kind of like that it's going the route almost. It reminds me in a lot of ways of a of Norman Bates story, and I can dig that.
I mean, there's definitely the execution of the film could be, because again, the script that I have was from last year. It was very much more King of Comedy meets Taxi Driver. Definitely, as some people speculated when that first teaser dropped. I mean, you're going to be entertained. I will say this, and I hope they fixed it in the final product, but in the script, Joker does have a very dramatic turn, but it's not as a mental breakdown. It's basically like, I'm not going to spoil it. Just say that it's a mental turn that kind of comes, it's going to happen, but it kind of feels unearned and comes out of left field. Mm-hmm. And, but I think you're going to really, I mean, they do paint the Arthur Fleck character as sympathetic, and they do raise some pretty interesting questions that there are answers to in the movie. There's no mystery box BS, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
But the one thing that falls from the premise, that falls from the trailer, that falls from the script, is that this movie, while entertaining, it's not a story that needs to be told. I mean, it's going to be fun, but it's not going to have, it doesn't need to be told. It doesn't need to be told like, say, the Tim Burton Batman, which was a story about a guy getting justice for his parents' killer all at the same time cleaning up Gotham. Like, that movie on its own is very self-contained. He vanquishes his parents' murderer and is left to protect Gotham for whoever knows how long. You can watch that movie and not see any of the sequels after that and be perfectly satisfied with that story. Yeah. But with this one here, it's like, okay, so we see how this character's created and what happens to Gotham as a result. And then what? Like, that's how it is. I mean, I'm still going to see it. And if it's good, I'm still going to praise it. Because, you got to reward good effort.
So it wasn't it didn't feel like a complete product.
It's definitely a complete product. It's no, like a widget. Story. You don't need it. Like, you can't describe what it's for, what it's used for. Like you don't need it, but it's there.
Didn't add to anything.
Yeah, it was one of those.
I think is the better term.
It was one of those things where it wasn't a movie that we really needed, but it's not a movie that we're gonna say, oh well. I mean,
it's not like the Birds of Woke where you just want to vomit at the trailer.
Definitely not.
And what the heck is that with her eating crap out of the dog's mouth, by the way?
No, this is going to be,
Lady and the Tramp parody. I don't know.
I'm going on a limb. I'm predicting that that Joaquin Phoenix gets an Oscar nomination out of it.
Oh yeah, he will.
Yeah,
he'll get it. Yeah, he will. I mean, I loved Heath Ledger's take on the Joker, even though I'm like, that's a great take on that character. It just isn't the character I recognize, but I like watching him. And
its own character when he did it.
It's his own character. It introduced the idea.
Joker or him.
Yeah, it's his own character. It introduced the idea of Joker being more chaotic, because he's not. He's a very selfish character. It just appears chaotic because he's kind of whimsical in his twisted evil ways. You can't really predict him, so he appears chaotic, but it's basically he does what he wants because he wants to do it. Like, his first crime is, I'm going to steal some jewels and kill people, like, before they realize what's happening. Like, that's not really chaotic. That's him just stealing jewels and having fun with it. But when you make him completely random, yeah, it's exciting, but it gets old really quick because he's no longer a character. He's just a force of nature that's random. And that runs dry quickly when you don't have a motivation of self-interest on a villain.
Yeah.
Which is probably why he's not doing too well in the comics.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I just heard evil ways and I'm sitting here with my
Nice. Well, I gotta say, thank you again, guys, for taking the time out to come in and be a part of things and discuss all this. I mean, especially on short notice.
I've been too twitchy. It's really stuffed up and itchy right now.
No, yeah, I mean, this was really awesome. And if you guys can work it into a schedule, we can figure out how to make this, like a once a week panel thing, and it'd be great because there's a lot of stuff that that we don't get to go on the Bounding channel and do live streams about, but there's a lot of good stories that, that I feel like we could do a panel discussion on that
we could talk about our time slots and stuff once you end the stream here. That's definitely possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys out there for watching. Make sure if you liked what you watched tonight, smash that like button. And for all the folks that are for all the folks on our awesome panel, make sure you follow their YouTube channels. I mean, it's easy. Click on their profile, go to their YouTube channel, man, and give them a like, give them a subscribe, hook them up. I mean, because they're definitely knowledgeable folks, and good, thoughtful entertainment fans. And in the end, we all are. And that's what I love. So thank you so much for coming out, spending some time with us tonight. Props to all our chatters. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Moira, Kitty. Thank you, everybody else. So we'll see you again soon. I'll make sure to tweet it out next time we're going to be live. So thank you so much and peace.
Thanks for having me. Great. It's been great talking to you guys.
Yeah, so
Yeah, have a good one. Appreciate it.
definitely willing to talk over time so we can do more of this.
Likewise. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.